Right, next consultation, which I think is number 5, higher education. We've got one of these for education, but it's a bit far-fetched at the moment because other things have got to happen before it can happen. Basically, it's based on kids actually all being lumped into a building where they're all taught the same things and feel left out if they don't wear the same clothes, are bullied if they don't wear the same clothes, or act the same as other kids. It's a target for bullies. And what we're saying is, you know, they should stay at home. They say that a kid concentrates for about 10 minutes a day at school. If they concentrate for half an hour at home, that's like 3 times more. But there's this underlying problem that the government want clones. They want us all to think the same, must get a job, you know, we've got to go to university, go further and further and further. They're now getting money for that. But yeah, so, and then get the job and pay your tax and basically, you know, there just isn't enough money to do that anymore. Not everybody can have a highly paid job. There just isn't enough money in the system. So something will give in the end anyway there. But we're talking about today higher education. That's after you've left the sixth form or when you're, you know, whenever you leave school. Some are lucky and they get to go to university, depending on how many A-levels they get. And then they have to take out a loan, which generally the government are now making people pay for their universities and colleges, or not necessarily colleges, because my daughter goes to college, she hasn't paid anything. But yeah, universities, you take out a loan, unfortunately that loan goes on rent, high rents, and drinking. And you know, because when a kid leaves home, happened to my cousin, I'm not saying this is for everybody, they virtually unwind like a coiled spring, you know, uncoiling, and go mad. And everyone knows that. When you're away from home, you know, you're becoming an adult. You do what you like. So, and then, if you do manage to get a job, you've got probably 10 years paying back your £25,000 loan. So the government have got you there. You know, you've got to get a job. And whoever's getting the interest on that, I don't know whether there's interest on it or not. I don't know. I haven't. That's why this is a consultation. I want people to tell me what is going on, because obviously I'm 60 and I've not been to university. It was a long way away from where we were ever going to be. I ended up renting pedal boats on the beach in Corfu and being a disc jockey. So that was, some people say, oh, aren't you lucky? You know, but yeah, it was good. It was probably the best part of my life anyway. But from the 70s, I mean, the 70s was great. Everyone had a car, everyone had a house, hardly anyone had a mortgage, and it was, you know, you had disposable income to go out with, everything was just right. Then obviously people started getting greedy, and then the Thatchers and people like that deregulated the bank, so we got credit cards and loads of money to spend. Nobody realised that we're gonna have to pay it back. But today, you leave university with a big debt. Most of that was spent on drink. And so, yeah, and here we go. Here's the meme of the day. Old man, got a little drink and a cigarette. I'm out celebrating. I paid off my student loans yesterday. Now that could happen. You know, we don't know. But when I get to money, and this lending at colossal interest rates and the equity release thing, that'll give you some idea of what's going on, how the rich are getting richer. But who gets that money? There's course fees, isn't there? So what used to be a free country university for all the people in the country, you now have to pay for, which cuts out sort of council tenants and things, or not necessarily council tenants, but people on low incomes who can't afford to send their kids to university, which is why they have to have the loan. Then they have to pay that off, and they're stuck. Now, Project X, a while ago, I don't know whether it's still going, lent some web space to a group of people calling themselves, I've even forgotten that. Anyway, they set up a Facebook page and used a bit of the Project X website to do something called the financial reset. That's where the whole country stops paying anything to do with money, stops paying its loans. Full stop. Your house is yours, there's no mortgage, your loans get paid back to zero, credit card companies just start at zero again, start from the beginning, don't sack anybody or anything, just start from the beginning. Total financial reset. What will happen then is that nobody will have a student loan for a start, nobody will have a mortgage, nobody will have HP. One of the family could probably leave work to look after the kids properly, not leave them sitting on their own while two parents are at work, or whatever. There'll be no arguments with finance. I mean, there's so many different things that it could do. But okay, so higher education, you've got your university degree, you've got your job, you spend ages paying back the loan. So therefore, you can't get on the property ladder or anything, because you're still paying a loan off. So, what is the point? Then you're renting. Rents are going up. People who are buying houses are obviously those people with money to rent the houses. And they want more and more returns on their money. Now, if anything ever happened to the interest rates, they're going to be clobbered. And so rents are going to go up even more. So, yeah, higher education. I want to know from everybody. Lecturers, students, not people sitting at home who think they know. We need the facts, basically. And I've been told I've got to write down every comment that comes in, collate them into various problems, and then present them to the rest of the Project X staff. And then, because we're all pretty much thinkers, and we only take on people who know what they're talking about. So that will be assessed by them properly. Yeah, so, and then, obviously you have to leave home to go to university. College people are okay, they tend to be nearby. But even us, we're where we are in Wales, we're out in the sticks, and it's a 20-minute drive to drop her off and then go and pick her up again. Buses, okay, but you get some very funny people on them, and it seems to be getting worse. Yeah, so kids end up heating up tins of baked beans on a radiator, to eat and things like that. I mean, and there are people I've heard people say, "Oh, but yeah, I did that," and I did all that, and it's character building. I said, no it isn't. You know, character, you shouldn't have to do things like that. You shouldn't have to be in a position where you have to be character built. That should be done at home, you know, in your family. So, yeah, higher education. There we go. What are the problems? The biggest problem is money, obviously. But, you know, there just isn't any around now. All the businesses we had ended up swapping stuff because nobody had any actual cash. Because that's being sucked out of the system by the property people, and by the fact that, you know, the banks are only lending to big business who keep buying other big businesses and getting richer or building new offices. They're sure thing returns they're putting their money into. So yeah, so there'll be more money sucked out of the system yet, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Eventually the game of Monopoly is over. A few people have got all the money and then there's nothing. So there's deadlock basically. Us lot down here, down the food chain will not be able to afford to buy anything, so their businesses will be no good. People leaving these places won't get a job because there's nothing being produced, etc, etc, etc. On the UFO series you'll see how they've all got round that, but you don't have to believe that if you don't want to. That's it's all pretty much common sense anyway. But the rich are just sitting there wondering when the hell we're going to realise. So, or they're just so concentrated on making money and making sure they don't lose any that they haven't noticed what's going on around them. They haven't noticed that it all comes to an end eventually, unless you can get money back down to the lower people to come back up again to spend. They've got no chance. So really, there's really no point. I mean, even let's take back to the 70s. My cousin, he did all his A-levels, went to university, did physics with chemistry, came out of that with a degree, couldn't get a job, so went back and did a PhD. Couldn't get a job, so he did a quick course in accounting and became an accountant. Now, all that tax, that was when the universities were free then, so that was all taxpayers' money gone in for nothing. And I know a doctor who's gone right through the doctor system. I don't know whether they paid or not, I don't know. And the NHS just wasn't the place to work. Terrible place to work apparently, except if you're really dedicated. The money was good for her because she was a proper doctor, but basically moved abroad. Much better time, much better climate. That's another thing, see, climate change. You know, I need to know about that too eventually. I know whether I've already done that one, I don't know. They keep giving me these sheets of paper because I'm the only one who's allowed to talk on camera. Yeah, we've got a choice here. Charities is next. High street decline and dating. There's a lot of problem, you know. I mean, I did dating back in the 80s, I think it was. Yeah, late 80s. One of the first ever dating agencies that came out. I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. I've just come out of a engagement and been dumped. Anyway, so higher education. What are the, you know, tell me everything, basically. What we got to? 14 minutes. So yeah, for some reason this camera goes over to another video after 30 minutes, and we haven't got our editing suite or anything set up yet. We got a MacBook and a lot of other bits and pieces, but not really any editing yet. I think there's an editing program on there, but nobody knows how to use it. So we're not going to bother with that. And anyway, this isn't, you know, we're not coming on going, oh, welcome to our YouTube channel. and then you know, lots of music and stuff like that. And no, we're not doing that. This is serious, basically. And we're also not bothered if you subscribe or like it or hate it or write bad comments. We don't care. We want to hear, you know, we want everything. We're not making any money out of this. So yeah, this is for us. So whatever you think about higher education, now, just while we've got plenty of time, when I do the education bit, that is basically everyone in Project X thinks schools 150 years ago, when they first ever were mandated by one of the governments, so that poor people could go, basically. They're all free. That was probably the best thing that ever happened. You know, kids could then read and write. You know, it was fantastic. But as soon as the internet came, and as soon as everyone got a mobile or a computer at home, which even the poorest people I've seen have got 2 computers, everyone's got a mobile, some 2, some 3, especially the drug dealers seem to have 3. But yeah, it's you know, now you really do not need, but you see, the problem we've got is incentive. A kid sitting at home is going to, if it's completely untouched, it's going to want to play games and mess about. So, and they always find something to do. You know, during the summer holidays, when I lived in the country, when I was a kid, I was busy the whole time. This 7-week summer holiday went just like that. But yeah, so there's got to be an incentive. Now, there can't be an incentive while we've got a money system, because when they pass a certain bit of their course on the computer, there has to be an incentive at the end, otherwise they just won't do it. Now, that could be game time, it could be a toy from Argos or whoever. So I worked for Argos for 19 years, so I know exactly the ins and outs of that too, so that's another thing I've got to talk about. So yeah, there has to be incentive at the end. Now, charging people to learn more, if you go to the UFO employment section, again, we're heading in the wrong direction. We're going for ideally 100% employment, but whereas actually we should be going for 100% no employment, non-employment, whereby machines do everything and we do our leisure things. We look after our children properly and decorate the house, things like that. That's what should be happening. And there is a method for that called the Centres of Excellence system, which the government knows about because I told them myself. I sent in a report with all this information in. So that's what this is, because I've seen what can be achieved, and this isn't it. Sending people away to old buildings with an old lecturer who drones on for hours in a corner somewhere, and all you're doing is ending up drawing your own drawings, you know. You could do all that at home, nice big screen, not like that's a small one, nice big screen, all the information on the screen, no paper. Paper is we're not going to be able to produce paper soon, so we should stop using it now, really. Everything on the, you know, after you've learnt about something. And the other thing is, education is just memorising stuff. Now, if you memorise a lot, so you memorise everything at school, you memorise everything at university, you've got probably no memory left. Although, when I get to the UFO memory video, you'll see how that works, how your memory works, because that's one thing I asked a lot of questions about. So that's another thing. You see, I've got that insight I know how messed up you can get by filling your memory too much. So the kids should be able to, if they're interested in something, that's what they should be doing. That's not necessarily what they should do for the rest of their life, because in my system, once you've left school, okay, you can go back and learn again, but a lot of people don't. But the education system online, you can start that any time, anybody. If you're 80, if you're 100, if you want to do your ABCs again, get on there and if you're on there for fun, and do it for fun. You probably won't get a toy or something at the end of it, but why not? And not only that, the education system, you're held up by the back person, and the front person can't go to the next class because they're not old enough. Therefore, they're stuck with everybody else. On a screen based at home, you can go as fast as you like. You can get a degree when you're 9, if you want to. I mean, there's people who've done it. But in our education system, it's all slogging along at the same level, unless you go to a private special school where you have to pay money. So, anyway, higher education, tell me all about it. I want to hear from lecturers. Even the other thing we personally want to hear from is a big university, how it's run. How much the CEOs get, if there is any. How much lecturers get. Because they seem to have big cars and big houses as well. Although some say, oh no, I'm broke. And walk around in a corduroy jacket their dad left them, yeah. Anyway, what have we got? We've got to 21. So, yeah. So that's what we want to know. And then we're going to try and do something about it. We have quite a few people who can do online courses. Now, online courses for kids have to be fun. So instead of feeding them a load of cartoons where they sit there going like that all day, feed them something. Although some of them have started putting the right messages across, and then the other thing they don't teach at school, I mean they might have started now, but certainly didn't when I was there, was respect of others. You should be taught how to interact with friends, because we certainly, I treated my friends badly, and some of them treated me badly, which was unnecessary. It was just a laziness. Taught to respect your family, and nobody looks after their old folk these days. Some do. I mean, some stay at home and look after them, but they're put into a home, and then hopefully die and give them a lot of money when they die. I don't because they need money. You see, everyone needs money. Everything's based on money. And the government like that because they get the taxes, and then the MPs can empty their moats and dig out their duck ponds and things like that, and then get massive expenses on top of their wages. They like us paying the tax. It gives them a real free, easy time. So that's what they want you to do. So making you pay a student loan and pay that off means you've got to get a job, and you're very unlikely to jump onto something else in case it doesn't earn you enough to pay off your student loan. There's a lot of things. Anyway, basically, it doesn't really produce clones as such, but we are all sort of mucked into the same thing, which some people in Project X think it's on purpose, because they've seen the internet coming and they think, imagine your kid has to get up some unearthly hour, doesn't want to get up, has breakfast, rushes out, is outside in the cold or the rain or whatever, or taken by a car which is exhaust and money for fuel and wear and tear. Then they get to the big building and they have to mainly 90% of the time deal with their friends 10% of the time learning. Some people like their friends, but then again, there is a system where kids can have lots of friends but learn from home. And it's all part of the parcel. But you have to, as soon as the child starts to, I don't know if you've heard the term, familiarity breeds contempt. If you're mucked into, you know, I know kids who've had to tolerate each other for 10 years because they all went to the same schools. You know, that's not, you know, you should be able to get away from that. And a home system, you might make friends with somebody, and if it starts to turn sour, your parents say, switch that off for a while, and then they're glad to see each other again after a couple of weeks. Not every single day. Especially if you've had an argument with them, you don't really want to see people or sit next to them every day, you know. The whole school thing is just a huge waste of resources, basically, and, if you like, government money. But then they've got to be fed, and it's usually rubbish. Although, you know, I'm sure the school dinners are a lot better than they were when I was a kid. We used to have semolina. Yeah, so give us all your information. We've got to, yeah, we better switch off. Okay, thanks a lot, and I think the next video, which I'm going to try and do today, charities. There's a good one.